So welcome to Bitesize Edge, and we're here for another one of our series of podcasts talking to people that I've referred to as Edgeites. There you go, Anna. And this week I'm delighted to be speaking to the lovely and very entrepreneurial, can't even say it, Anna, entrepreneurial Anne Parker Naples.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
Yeah, great. It's really nice to come and talk to you guys because I've had quite a journey since I finished my master practitioner course with you.
Haven't you just? So what I want to do really is just kind of help the listeners really gain a little bit of an understanding about you, Anna, and how you ended up actually exploring NLP at the very beginning. What was your motivation? What were you doing? How did you end up there?
So my story is quite big in terms of NLP. So before I met the wonderful Pip Thomas that I'm speaking with now, I had encountered NLP for the first time when I went to see a hypnotherapist. And at this point, my life was so bad. I was disabled and I was very, very depressed, and I was told I would never walk again. And I was running a business I didn't like, and I felt very, very stuck and very, very small. And so my first encounter with NLP really was an incredible journey of realizing that I didn't have to keep talking about depression, about being stuck, and about being limited. And that even if it was true that I might well be disabled for the rest of my life, that actually I could still have a really great life. And that kind of I felt like I was switched on. And I changed my language from being stuck, limited and depressed to talking about healing. I had all sorts of very strong metaphors that were going through my head that I would think about all the time. And within 3 weeks, I was back on my feet. I wasn't fully recovered, but it was a big journey for me. And then so for a long time, I knew that NLP, there was some real power in it. And I thought for a long time about doing the course. And I went for a training day, a taster day with Pip. And it took me a long time.
That was some time, Anna, wasn't it, before you actually rocked out?
Yeah, probably about 5 years before I actually did the course.
Mm-hmm.
So, from your end, you'd probably hope for a sooner, return on investment of your time with me. But I just couldn't quite do it. I didn't quite have the courage to go there.
Yeah.
And I want to be. I started on this journey of exploring.
Anna, your video is frozen, so I'm just going to stop. I'm going to pause the recording for a second. So Anna, sorry, you were just saying that you came on a taster day and it was about 5 years?
Yeah, until I came and did my practitioner course.
Outrageous.
And I know. In that time, I'd been thinking about it a lot, but I felt that I didn't have the income, that I wasn't ready. I didn't fully understand really what it would give me. Because I didn't think at that time I wanted to coach other people. I didn't want to teach anyone else this stuff. And I kind of threw myself into this career as a voice actor, really looking at opportunities and exploring. And interestingly, the time that I came to the practitioner course coincided with me being nominated for my first big award in Hollywood, which is obviously quite a big deal. Yeah. And I can really, really remember us having to introduce ourselves in that room, and me having to, and I sort of said, I do a bit of voiceover work, and really played down what I was doing. And I can remember very clearly, Pip, that you challenged me on that, and you said, well, why is it so uncomfortable for you to talk about what you do? And that actually, even just that moment was the beginning of me having just a massive process of unlocking over the next 6 days, realizing that I was hiding a lot, that I was really scared of being successful, whilst at the same time really pushing for it. And just, lots of limiting beliefs that I had no idea were running my programs. And over the next year or so that I worked with you, kind of blew them all out of the park, really.
Wow. So what was it that, do you think, I challenged you on that one aspect. What was the dialogue, do you think, that followed that challenge, that allowed things to just really shift and change for you? What was your dialogue?
So my dialogue, well, internally, it was that I felt uncomfortable showing that I was successful, even though that's something I really wanted. I was uncomfortable being different. I would often walk into rooms. Pretty much every time I went somewhere, I would be looking for the differences between me and the other people in the room, that I didn't belong, that I didn't fit in. So stating that I was successful in my field felt really uncomfortable with other people around. Whilst inside, I knew that that was something I desperately wanted and I yearned for. Actually experiencing it was then uncomfortable. And I started to realise over the rest of that week, and then later on with my master practitioner course, that these were patterns that had been running for a long, long time and were essentially the things that were holding me back.
Okay. And so once you recognise those patterns of behaviour, because sometimes we can find ourselves in the place of recognising patterns of behaviour, can't we? But it doesn't necessarily mean we choose to do anything about it.
So I think for me, some of the exercises around chunking were really, really beneficial, because it made me see that my kind of highest purpose was about having more joy, more freedom, more happiness, and about being seen so that I could help other people in the world. And until we did those exercises, I'd only ever really thought about me getting recognition for my own ego. I'd never really seen that I fitted into a wider picture in the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that was a big part about belonging as well. And one of the biggest things that I uncovered was actually during a timeline therapy session, where I was strongly looking at a picture, a memory, or whatever it is that we bring together in those timeline therapy sessions, about when I'd been bullied, when I was severely attacked when I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had made lots of decisions to hide. And even as a performer, as an actress in my early adult life, I had striven to be seen and to be heard, but I would never ever want to be captured, and I'd never want to be seen. So I was never interested in screen work. And noticing that although that needs to be seen, but also wanting to hide, was kind of this push me, pull you in my behaviours. So I'd go into auditions and I'd be out there, but then I'd be looking for the ways that I was rejected, and that whole sense of belonging and that fear of not belonging just kept cropping up over and over again, but I didn't know it was there.
Hence obviously all the work you did with audiobooks and things like that. You have the recognition without being visual.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing. So I became known as the leading British voice actor in the US, but it was all me hiding. And so it was uncomfortable for me to then be on the red carpets in Hollywood, even though that's what I wanted. It was uncomfortable because I was seen. So once I'd want it, it felt incongruent. And one of the amazing transformations really through my work with you was that the 7th time I was actually an award finalist in Hollywood coincided with me having just completed my master practitioner course, which was completely and utterly phenomenally life-changing for me. And instead of it being I want recognition, I want recognition, I want recognition, I want people to approve of me, suddenly I felt that my whole world was actually I'm already enough, and I really want other people to understand that they're already enough. And that's where my work is completely pivoted to. So instead of hiding behind a microphone, albeit being very good at it, I now actively get out there to share my voice, my story, to get seen and heard in as many places as I possibly can, so that I can affect people with this mindset work.
Yeah. I also remember, Anna, not to be undermined or underestimated in any shape or form, was it your first or second time in Hollywood that you also sported yourself a pair of stonking shoes?
Yes, I do. Yes. So that was the other thing. By this point, I'm fully recovered, and I'm wearing a pair of heels on the other side of the world, doing something at the top of my industry at the time. And my journey had been incredible, and I put it all down to NLP. If I hadn't discovered this stuff, if it hadn't come into my life, I honestly believe I would still be stuck, I'd still be depressed, I would still be disabled. And
so sorry, Anna, why do you think more people don't know about it then? Why do you think it's still, for something that's been going around for 20 plus years and manifesting itself in a whole host of different ways, why is there a reason, do you think, that there are still lots of people who haven't heard of, benefited from the power of NLP?
I think people don't understand it, and I think part of the issue is the phrasing of NLP itself, neuro-linguistic programming. People don't understand. What I do love is that even right down early on in our education system now is that children are being taught about growth mindset.
Yeah.
And that is all very well. And I think that's a brilliant thing. And there is a slight shift. And there's more things, wonderful things like mindfulness coming into the education system really low down. And that is brilliant.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that parents understand or that grandparents understand what that means. And it also doesn't mean that the children are whilst they understand the concept, which is brilliant, they don't necessarily understand the tools for tremendous change and transformational change.
Yeah.
I do hope that kind of opens out as those children who are learning about it now are kind of coming up through the education system as they become adults and teens.
So sticking with the theme of children just for a moment, you've got 3 children.
Yeah.
And a puppy.
And a puppy and 2 new hamsters.
And 2 new hamsters. Of course, not forgetting your husband.
And a cat.
Oh, and a cat, my God. Yeah, okay. How have you found, because obviously both you and your husband have now done NLP, although obviously you've advanced through it far more. How's that been from a family environment, from a family unit perspective?
So it's been interesting because NLP doesn't give you all the tools never to have challenges in your life. Mm-hmm. What it does is it makes you better able to deal with them when they come up. Mm. One of the most, without giving too much away and respecting my daughter's privacy, my teenage daughter has had some issues in her teenage life in recent years, and it's been interesting how we have parented her through that and the steps that we have taken because we have more knowledge at our fingertips. So we will be very mindful of what we say when she needs to hear particular messages. And our go-to is to get her to speak to someone who knows about NLP, because for me, that's going to be far more beneficial than her going for counselling, where she's going to get all her woes out, but not necessarily do anything transformative to how she sees the world. So that's our go-to. And I think, anytime I feel that I've wandered off course, then I'll speak to someone who knows about NLP and timeline therapy.
So you've taken another twist and a turn. You've obviously been working with someone from a coaching or guidance perspective, and you're moving into a very, very public arena where you're putting yourself out there, which is one of the things you just talked about there. You've also been quite open, I've noticed, with some of your social media posts about when you might have had a naff day or something's knocked you off course.
Yeah.
Could you imagine yourself having done that a few years back, behaving in that way, in the position you're in now?
So I think the most striking difference in the last 3 years since I finished that master practitioner course is that now I work a lot of the time as a motivational speaker on massive stages alongside, well-known household names. I couldn't have done that. I couldn't, even though I was a performer, I couldn't have spoken my own words like that without feeling uncomfortable. Whereas now I thrive on it, and I couldn't have shared my vulnerabilities in a public arena. Now that's not to say that I spill my guts about everything going on at home, because I don't. But everything I do is strategic and deliberate in order to show that even if you do this mindset stuff, you're not perfect. Because I think it's important to show that as well. It's not like you do stuff and life suddenly, well, that's it, everything's brilliant, because it isn't that way. So my journey now is that I work with people. I decided basically whilst I was on the red carpets in Hollywood that I wanted as many people to know this stuff as possible. And for me, that the words that were always really important, Pip, were success and recognition. And so for me, it's been working out, how do I package that up for other people? And so for me, it's been quite an interesting journey running essentially an online coaching business for the last couple of years, 2.5 years. I have taken various pivots and twists and turns. And right now I'm focusing on female entrepreneurs, not exclusively, but mostly, to help them up level, to get more financial success, more recognition, because a lot of that comes down to confidence, which is about limiting beliefs. But what's been interesting is that before, if I wanted to make a change in anything I was doing, I would be so wrapped up in what are other people going to think of me? What if it fails? What if I don't? What if it doesn't succeed? What if I have to change or stop and I'll be embarrassed? Whereas actually right now, I'm planning for a massive change in my business in 2 weeks' time. And I'm not worried about the fact that I'm going to be doing things differently to other people. I'm not worried that I'm making a change. I'm not worried about judgment. In fact, I thrive on it. And that is so different to how I used to be.
Yeah, and you can hear, Anna, you can just hear that it feels very congruent in the way that you're talking with the words that you're using. So clearly the limiting beliefs, the self-doubt that has been present in your world has been parked as something that was part of your history, as opposed to being ever present with you now. One of the things I want to pull upon there, which I think is absolutely key. I mean, two things actually. The first one is around just because you're working in the world of NLP, growth mindset, managing, the capabilities of our mind, doesn't mean that you are now exclusively positive.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, but what it does mean, sorry, Anna, what it does mean, I find, is that if I think about myself within that situation, so when I have those moments when I'm feeling exclusively as far away from positive as possible, it's that moment of going, God, and the time frame it takes for me to recognise the tools I've got available to me to shift and change where I'm at. It's the first thing, because the only person who can shift and change it is me, and I recognise the ability to do that almost in a nanosecond. I might choose to take a little bit longer than that before I do anything about it, because it could be wholly appropriate that I sit in that moment. The other flip of that sometimes is I also then find myself at times initially being my worst critic. Do you know what I mean? I kind of go, oh, come on, Pip, you know this stuff, for God's sake. What are you doing? Get yourself up off the floor.
But that's why it's important that we talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really important. So it's really bringing to mind, I didn't realise until I worked with you how much I thought in metaphor and story anyway, but I have this metaphor that kind of goes through my mind from time to time, and it's when I'm approaching levels of burnout. Now, I'm strongly entrepreneurial, and I always have been, except that sometimes we've had, since I worked with you, we've had all sorts of family challenges as well, with really serious health issues for the family. And one of them coincided with me launching my business. My father had a heart attack the day after I launched, and that was very difficult to do publicly because my business was about mindset and the coping and all of those things. And I have this metaphor that is about that I've got myself as an entrepreneur. I'm on this steaming futuristic train and I can't get off. And then I literally have to jump and in order to rest and heal. And actually, sometimes it's okay for me to lie at the bottom of that hill in the dirt and to accept that it's all right to stop and breathe. Because when I do get up, I have a choice about which direction I take. Yeah. And that metaphor for me really, really works very powerfully through my life. So it's always okay to jump off, because you're just going to different routes.
And I think sometimes, Anna, isn't it about actually just giving yourself permission to jump off?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was talking to someone the other day who was saying, but I've got to continue because I've got people, I've got my family reliant upon me, blah, 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 blah. And my simple question was, well, what will happen when you have no more resources left? How will that impact your family? And so it was that moment of going, do you know what, for me to be the best version, very cliched, very trite, but to be the best version, I need to take time out. But the other thing with that, which I wanted just to come back to, Anna, was around, and this is something that I remember the day that I kind of went, oh my word, it's absolutely okay to be vulnerable. And I was listening to the fabulous Brené Brown at the time, The Power of Vulnerability, and I was heading into London to see do you remember Roger, my nemesis? Yeah, do you remember? I always used to talk about him, didn't I? I was on my way to go and see him, the CFO of the company that had bought another company of mine. And what I didn't realise that when I got there, I was actually about to be suspended. But what was really interesting, Anne, is I was listening to The Power of Vulnerability all the way there. And then I found myself in this place. I mean, it was all good and fine, and good rather. And then my journey back home, it was that moment of going, it's absolutely okay now to go, oh my word, I'm not quite sure where I am or how I'm going to manage this situation. And it was such a learn, and such a powerful learn.
Yeah. And I had a similar one, actually. Just after finishing the master practitioner course, I had such a deep experience that was kind of still going on in my head as I left you. And I had to sit outside, actually went and sat in a field before I came home to just pull myself together to communicate to my family. I don't know what's coming next, but the way that you've known me is now different. And I would say that I've stuck with that. And the interesting thing is I'm still me, but I'm a better version of me. It doesn't mean that I'm always 100%, but I have more options available to me. And I think for me, it's about thinking about the world in terms of adventure and playfulness instead of it being a really scary environment.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit now about what I know you're about to change your business, or you're about to make a fabulous announcement. So I'm sure you're not going to do the exclusive here. But just tell us a little bit about your aims and desires for the future with your business.
So my biggest aim really is to impact as many people as I possibly can to up-level their lives. And I think that the best way I can do that is to help people have more of the success and recognition and fulfillment in their own lives. And very often that is connected with a business idea or a plan for having more of something in your life. So right now I'm about to launch something that is for female entrepreneurs and women in business. I've thought a lot about whether I wanted to go down the gender specific route, but I think that the online world there are so many women working in it because it enables a lot of mothers, not just mothers, but it enables a lot of people to have businesses where it wouldn't have done before. And I've been working a lot with some of the UK's leading entrepreneurs to make sure that I'm honing my message and my marketing in quite the right way. And I'm about to launch something that is to support women in business wherever they are, that's totally affordable, that gets them the results that they need, so, without giving too much away. But for me, whilst it is about their businesses and about helping those up level, actually my work and all of my motivational speaking that I do now is about showing people the possibility for their lives. And I want to, I would love to become the kind of go-to motivational speaker in Britain, because I think there are some key voices not being heard. There are some key messages not being heard. There's a lot of American speakers out there who we're sort of hearing about, people like Mel Robbins and Gabrielle Bernstein. And I think that we need more of that in the UK with British voices. So I hope to feel that.
Completely. So Anna, if you were going to give to anyone listening to this who's kind of going, do I do NLP? Okay.
Do it. I mean, I waited for 5 years. I can't believe I wasted so much time, because through NLP, not only did my income change, but my whole attitude changed. And I know that as I grow and I learn and I implement it more and more, that my life is only going to get better. That doesn't mean I don't have wobbles, because of course I do. And a lot of those actually are really hormonal. So I have to kind of watch. And actually sometimes it's okay to sit in that space. But in the long term, if you want your life to improve, there is no better way than working with Edge NLP. There we go. That's a sound for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. And Anna, just so for those people listening, how can they reach you if they want to inquire? And obviously, after you launch, you make your announcement in a couple of weeks. How can, and potentially people will be listening to this after you've made that announcement. How can people reach you?
So if they're podcast listeners, which I'm sure they are, you want to go to Inspiring Success Podcast with Anne Parker Naples. And if you're not so much into your podcast, or you want to connect with me in a different way, find me on Facebook at Anne Parker Naples on my page, or come to my website, annaparkernaples.co.uk. And get in touch, because I'm always interested in talking to people who want to up level in some way, whether it's their business or their life. And if you even want to just find out more about working with Edge, I'm more than happy to talk you through how I found it.
Brilliant. Okay, so Anna, thank you so much for joining us here at Bitesize Edge. For those of you listening, you can subscribe to our channels. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on iTunes and many other podcast platforms alike. Anna, it's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to seeing what is going to hit the social media, I suspect, in the next couple of weeks. And I wish you the best of luck with your new direction.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, you're very welcome. Have a great rest of the day. Take care.